Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, wherever in the world you're joining us from. Welcome to Tata Literature Live, the Mumbai International Lit Fest, co-sponsored by Tata Steel and Tata Projects and powered by Godrej. This session is presented by Ashok Hiremat. The Treehouse series has been co-created by New York Times best-selling author Andy Griffiths and illustrator Terry Denton. Andy is also an ambassador for the Indigenous Literacy Foundation and the Pajama Foundation that work to promote literacy among Australian children. A wrecking ball, a deep dark cave with a dragon, a spooky graveyard. Wondering where you can find all these things? In the 143-story treehouse, of course. Join Andy and Terry on their latest adventure as they decide to go camping. So, are we all ready to board the 143-story treehouse? Over to you, Andy.
Thank you very much, Gillian, and thank you all for joining me here in the writing room in the Treehouse in Melbourne, Australia, where it's 4:30 in the afternoon. We've been writing hard all day and now very happy to be able to talk to you and take you on a little tour of our treehouse and give you a little insight into how it was created and who created it, because I'm just one of the people who works on it. I'm the writer, and we have an illustrator called Terry and a wonderful editor called Jill, and of course a publisher called Mr. Big Nose. Now, just before I introduce you to them all, this is where I do all my writing. It's a room full of toys because I love anything that's fun, unusual, makes me excited, gets my imagination going. It could be, what have I got here? A pink dinosaur could be the way I get started on writing. Oh, he's moving around there. Pink dinosaurs never do what they're told. It could be a scary little creature called a hobbyar. These are ugly little things, and they make awful noises too. Let's have a listen, see if he can talk to you. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. What a horrible way to start a talk. Well, I'll make sure the hobbyard does not come back for at least a little while. Hey, let me take you on a little tour of the treehouse, and then I'll come back and show you how I make the stories. It's all about surprising the reader, and that's how we came up with the treehouse. So if we could go to the PowerPoint now, I'll show you the cover of the latest book, which is the 143 Treehouse. This is the 11th book. We've been doing this now for 11 years. It takes 1 year to write each book because there's a lot of distractions in our treehouse. And I'll show you the real life team in the next slide, which is Terry, who is the illustrator. He's the clown, the clowny looking guy with all the curly hair on the end there. Very funny illustrator, and he never does what he's told. He's always not doing his work. He's drawing. If I ask him to draw something, he'll draw a picture of his finger, and that's no use to me unless I'm really desperate. Next to him is our publisher, Claire, and we call her Mr. Big Nose, which is very rude of us, but she, in real life, she's a really nice publisher. She doesn't yell at us, not like the cartoon character. There's me in the middle, well, in the double middle, obviously the best looking one of everyone, much better looking than Terry. And next to me is Jill, who is not only the editor, she reads everything and tells us how to improve it or where it's going wrong, but in real life, we're also married. And so she's a character in the books as well. So we use real life to help us create very unreal situations. In the next slide, you'll see us all transformed into our book images. There's Terry over on the left with his pencil. Claire, poor Claire, has become Mr. Big Nose, looking out of the 3D video phone. And there's me underneath holding the book, and Jill over on the side. She doesn't live in the treehouse. She lives in a little house in a forest, and her house is full of animals. And she has one very special animal, which is a flying cat. Now, to get the stories going, we'll look on the next slide. We get a lot of inspiration from books that we loved as children. And I've read all my life. I get a lot of pleasure from it, but also ideas. And there was a particular favourite of mine was Enid Blyton, a UK author, and she wrote a book called The Magic Faraway Tree, which was about a magical tree where anything could happen. And so you can see me using that inspiration to much later help me think about the treehouse. In Terry's favourite book was the Treasure Island. He liked adventure books full of pirates and buried treasure. And so that's a feature of our books too. There's fantasy, there's adventure, and Jill's favourite book was a very famous book called Pippi Longstocking, which you'll see here. And that's about, interestingly enough, a little girl who lives in a house, who is strong enough to hold up a horse and has very independent and has lots of adventures. And so our books are sort of combinations of fantasy, adventure, and comedy. And three friends having those adventures. In the next slide, you will see all of the books we've created so far. And if you're like most of our readers, you're probably wondering why 13? Why is there 13, 26, 39? Well, that started as an accident. One day I said to Terry, can you draw me a treehouse? I want a really dangerous treehouse with a bowling alley where the bowling balls fall out of the tree, and a shark tank where people who are not being careful might fall in. And I said, while you do that, I'll start writing a story. And so I said, I'll do some research. I'll look on the internet for pictures of trees that might be suitable. Now, research is a really great way of getting ideas. And I soon found that there are many trees. So this is a little guessing game. I want you to look at each tree and see if you think it would make a good tree for a tree house. Okay, in the first tree, that's me and Terry writing our books. And in each book, we have to write a book. Here is the first tree. It's a very, very tall tree. Do you think that would be a good tree? You might, but I think there's not enough branches. I think you'd have a long way to climb up and a long way to fall out if Terry pushed you out when you were having an argument. So I think that one is too tall. Let's have a look at the next tree that I found. Okay, not too tall, but maybe a little bit wide perhaps, and definitely not the right sort of branches. They look kind of crazy things like Terry's hair. Let's have a look at another type of tree. Oh, now that is definitely not a tree you would want to build a tree house in. That's called a bottom tree, and they are very, very smelly, and I'm sorry that you even had to see it. Stop laughing right now. Let's have a look at another tree. Hopefully we can get one that's really good for a tree house. There it is. A big Moreton Bay fig. We have a lot of those in Australia, and they have huge branches going in all directions, and there's even vines. You can see vines that you could climb up and swing on and help you get up into the higher branches. So once I had that, just looking at pictures feeds my imagination, and I start creating little stories. And then I thought, I better have a look at some different types of tree houses. The first tree house I saw is the next slide, which was a very, very scary tree house. Definitely not one I would be comfortable in if the wind was blowing. So I thought, nah, too scary. What else can I find? Maybe I could find a fairy tale castle treehouse with a special spiral set of stairs, and you see a little castle up there. That was good, but then I found a really futuristic treehouse, which looks, well, yeah, that is a treehouse, believe it or not. But when I looked at that, I thought, gee, that looks like a giant eyeball sitting in the middle of the forest. And that would be good. If you like to spy on people, you could sit in your treehouse and spy out at everyone, and they would not even know you were there, except for that lady in the photo who is obviously going, oh, look, a secret spy treehouse. So you might have to send laser beams out of your eyeball at her and her little dog as well. See how a story can come from just a single image. This is how you create books and ideas. Let's have a look at another type of treehouse, which gave me a different type of idea. This was it looks like futuristic, but it also, to me, looks a bit like a spaceship. And I started thinking, what if your treehouse could actually lift off the Earth and go into outer space? That would be a really cool treehouse. And that's actually an idea we explored in the 130-story treehouse, where we go into space and have to fight giant eyeballs, believe it or not. Giant flying eyeballs from Eyeballia. Okay, so I had my tree. I'd done my research. I'd looked at trees and I looked at tree houses. Meanwhile, let's see in the next slide what Terry was doing. He was very busy. Again, remember I said he never does what I want? He was just drawing levels in trees. And I started counting them, and I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, Terry, you've made a 13-story treehouse. That's amazing. Except, where's the bowling alley? Where's the tank full of sharks that I wanted? And he said, just a minute, I haven't done the second draft. And so you'll see the second draft on this next slide, and all the detail went in. So he starts with a very simple outline and gets more and more detailed. And I got really excited because, as I said, I only need a picture and I can start making stories. And I thought, that's a treehouse I would love to live in. And then Terry did a third draft. So, like my stories, we have to rewrite and redraw a lot of times to get them just right. So that's an important part of the process. But at this point, I was like, wow, we could live in this treehouse. And in the next slide, you'll see that I did get my bowling alley. And there's Terry bowling, making a mistake, actually. He said he bowled my head instead of a bowling ball. And I'm like, hey, that's my head. And he's like, oh, sorry, Andy, which I don't think he was that sorry because it happens a lot. In the next slide, you'll see our see-through swimming pool. Once again, Terry is not being very nice to me. He's standing on my head, pretending he doesn't know where I am. You'll see the sharks in the next slide, where we have a shark tank. And Terry is feeding them. He's bent over and he doesn't realise that the shark is about to eat him for dinner. I'm trying to warn him, but he doesn't listen to me. In the next slide, you'll see we have a secret underground laboratory, and we're operating a shrinking ray here, where you can make big things small, or you can take small things and make them really big. We're making a giant banana in this particular scene. In the next slide, there's one more feature. Oh, yes, the lemonade fountain, where you can just lie under it and it will make sparkling lemonade of any flavour that you would like. And when you're sick of drinking lemonade, you can also eat marshmallows from the marshmallow machine, which is on this next slide. The marshmallow machine follows you around and fires marshmallows into our mouths whenever we're hungry. So it was like a dream treehouse. And we still had to write our book. And we had a lot of problems because there were so many things going on in that book. And there's us hard at work in the final chapter, writing up all the stuff that happened. And the kids in Australia, when we did this, said, "We love this story. Can we have another one, another one?" And so I said to Terry, well, we could add another 13 stories. Can you draw a 26-story treehouse? And as you see, he could. We added 13 new stories, kept the other ones, and ended up with this beautiful 26-story treehouse. And my favourite level of everything we've ever done is the Maze of Doom. And the Maze of Doom is a maze so complicated that nobody who's ever gone in has ever come out again. Now, let me ask you a question. I can't actually see you, but put up your hand if you would be someone who would want to go into the Maze of Doom. Well, I hope you didn't put up your hand, because look at that maze. It's so complicated. You'll never come out again. Just those penguins went in because penguins can't read the warning signs. So that's the Maze of Doom. Then the kids in Australia said, we want another one. So we added another 13 stories and got to the 39-story treehouse. You can see it's getting bigger and sillier, and there's a boxing elephant called the Trunkinator, and we put a volcano in it. And and a roller coaster, which is this next slide, is my favourite picture Terry has ever drawn. I just love this complicated roller coaster, which is going through a ring of fire. So you catch on fire as you go down that first hill, and then you go through a big tank full of water, which puts out the fire. But there's sea monsters in the water. So you can see we have a lot of fun, but a lot of danger here. On the next slide, I'll show you the next book, which was another 13 levels, was added to make the 52-story treehouse. And then we added another 13 levels. How good is your maths? We'll see on the next slide whether you got it right. Exactly, you all got it right. 65 stories treehouse. So yeah, that 13 was just a random accident. That's how many you happened to draw. But then we used that to help us create each subsequent book. So I have to make a list of all the levels I can think of. We've had a lot of adventures in these, and we've now got to 143, which you'll see on the next slide, is where we're currently at. So 11 books. A lot of characters, a lot of stuff has happened. Some of the highlights were when the monkeys took over the treehouse and started riding our marshmallow machine, which you'll see in the next slide. Monkeys annoying us. Oh, no, sorry. You'll see that in a minute. That's our camping trip. 143 is all about camping. We needed a nice, relaxing holiday after the 18 months of pandemic and an upset that we've all been through. But you'll see the holiday didn't turn out quite as relaxing as I hoped. In fact, in the treehouse, nothing works like you expect it to. As I said, we'll see in the next slide some monkeys riding around on our marshmallow machine, firing marshmallows at us. In the next slide, you'll see particularly, that was a lot of fun actually, riding a giant bird down Mount Everest, which we had to climb the never-ending staircase. That's our giant bird. Jill knows how to talk to animals, so she was able to get it to take us where we wanted to. In the next slide, you will see. That's where we're flying around in Terry's ears. He can make his ears really super large, and a lot of earwax in them, but it gets us there up to the top of Mount Everest. The next slide, we had another adventure. Vegetables were trying to eat us, and we had to disguise ourselves as vegetables and go into the vegetable kingdom. That was the most disgusting adventure we've ever had. In the next slide, I think this might be, this is what I was telling you about when we went into space. The eyeballs took us to Eyeballia, and we had to fight an intergalactic death battle against 13 other aliens. That was particularly an awful one, trying to suck my brains out. On the next one, we went time travelling in the 65-storey treehouse. This is us at the bottom of the ocean in a submarine submarine. And then on the next slide, we went time travelling to, backwards and forwards in time. This is where we saw a mummy in an Egyptian pyramid. And we also saw some dinosaurs. And if we go to the next slide, you can see us, we didn't have a TARDIS, we just had a wheelie bin, which we had to use like a time travel device. And that blasted us down 65 million years ago, right into the middle of the age of the dinosaurs, which you'll see on the next slide. And, we thought we couldn't see any dinosaurs at first. They were all behind us, but we sure saw them soon. And that got me thinking, what if you really did see a dinosaur? And now, if we go to the next slide, not just you seeing a dinosaur, but what do you think would happen if a little baby met a dinosaur? And so I'm going to come back live here to play this out for you, because this is a really good example of how we go about coming up with the idea for a story. And really, I just think, okay, one day there's a little baby, and I'll just try to get it to go into the screen there. There we are. This little baby is walking around, has run away from home, and then you say, what's the worst thing that could happen next? And I've already given you a hint. It meets a dinosaur. Now, when a baby meets a dinosaur, our brains are already going, oh no, this is terrible. This poor little baby is going to get eaten by a giant dinosaur. And we can predict how the story might go, and it might end something like this, with the dinosaur eating the baby. Now, that's not a story that I'm sure any of you would want to see, although I can hear some of you laughing already. But what about if that happens? That's not funny, is it? Well, it is a bit, because they're only toys. But I wouldn't do that, because I want to surprise the reader. So I would ask the question, if a baby and a dinosaur met, what's the opposite to what we would expect? So instead of the dinosaur eating the baby, I would have the baby eats the dinosaur. And that's where the baby jumps on top and it squashes it with its powerful bouncing, and then starts eating the dinosaur. So that would be a surprising ending to that particular meeting. But perhaps there's another one. Perhaps there's another idea with it. The dinosaur and the baby meet, and the dinosaur doesn't eat the baby, and the baby doesn't eat the dinosaur, but they see each other and become good friends. So that the baby, actually, the dinosaur could adopt the baby. It might see this poor little baby, and it picks it up in its arms and takes it home and raises it like a little dinosaur baby all of its own. Or perhaps the baby picks up the dinosaur and carries the dinosaur home to its parents and says, look what I found in the park. Can we keep him? Can we keep him? That would be a more surprising, more interesting story. So you see, by asking the question, what is the reader not expecting, you open up many, many ideas. And that's what our Treehouse is all about. Now, perhaps you had a dinosaur and a baby, and they met each other, and not that the dinosaur eats the baby, not that the baby eats the dinosaur, not that anyone adopts them, but they become good friends. And the dinosaur carries the baby around on its shoulders. Just imagine how much fun that would be, having a friend like that. But what if, some of you might want to see a romance, what if the dinosaur and the baby saw each other, and this is admittedly a very silly story, but they see each other and fall in love, and they fly through the air and they embrace, they kiss, they get married and have little children of their own. And my question then would be, what would their children look like? If a dinosaur and a baby had children, what would they look like? So we can find out. And the reason I like toys is because you can, as you've seen, you can remove their heads and create whole new toys. So then we can create the dinosaur's baby. And that's a really interesting character. And if I can get it up to the camera there to scare you all. No. You were being eaten by a dinosaur whose baby's head was falling off. There we go. That's better. So that's one child, but maybe there's another possibility. And in your imagination, there are always possibilities. And that's why we read books. That's why I love to write them, because you can just keep exploring. Perhaps the baby would look more like that, so that you have a little dino baby, and we could make up stories about that. Imagine this little baby when it goes to school. I think the other other kids would be likely to tease it and call it horrible names. And how would it solve that problem? Try and get it on the screen there. It would probably eat the other children. And then what would happen? The teachers would come out and say, stop eating the other children. That's very, very naughty. And what would happen then? I think you know. The dino baby would eat the teachers. Oh, what an interesting story. And how did we get there? Just by playing around with dinosaurs, babies, and hobby hours. Oh, there he is again. And I think I'd better go and give this hobby hour some food, because it's probably getting very hungry at this point. So that's a little introduction to our treehouse, and I would love to see you all in our treehouse at any time. We're open, let me get this right, we're open 8 days a week, 53 weeks a year, 366 days every year. So we're always open, morning, noon, night. We never go to bed. We never do homework. We never sleep, and we never eat vegetables. We only eat marshmallows and lemonade, and we have a lot of fun. So you are welcome to join us anytime. And who knows, we might write some stories together. So I think that's pretty close to the end of my time, and I might hand back to Gillian now, and I'll see you, or the wacky waving flailing man wave goodbye to you all. So thank you all for coming, and see you in the treehouse. There he is.
What an adventure. So full of imagination. That was really fantastic, Andy. Thank you so much. And thank you to our lovely audience for being here. This session was presented by Ashok Hiremat. Thanks to all our partners without whom this would not have been possible. The Treehouse series is available at our knowledge partner, landmarkxcite.com. Tata Literature Live, co-sponsored by Tata Steel and Tata Projects and powered by Godrej, continues with many more sessions. Do have a look at our website for the full schedule. Coming up in just a couple of minutes is Besura, the story of two very out-of-tune musicians by Tilottma Shom.